This is the first time I'm recording, so I hope I'm doing it right. Suzanne and I also know each other for a very long time from the church in Mystic. Well, now it's in Groton, but Mystic, Connecticut. So, that's Brad Whipple's church. Doesn't it sound like I just know all your pastors?
Yes.
You've got a lot of contacts. I don't know anybody with more.
Yeah, I do have a lot of contacts. And who's down there? Heather. Heather, hello. Please unmute yourself, at least for now.
Okay.
Hi. Good to have you here. And where are you from, Heather?
So right now we're meeting in Taunton, Massachusetts, New Beginnings Christian Fellowship.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and you were somewhere else, right?
We were in
Marlboro. Yeah.
Plainville.
Oh, Plainville. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, good to have you here. And the rest of you, there's a few that joined us while I was talking. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad you're here. Hi. Claudia, what church are you from? Or where are you out of?
Yeah, I'm in Western Mass. And Greenfield is Living Waters, Greenfield, Massachusetts.
Okay, nice. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Isn't that kind of fun that we can all be together and we all live different places? I mean, and we have a Florida girl with us here too. So, not just, and on Saturday when I taught this workshop, I had 3 people from Europe. I don't even know how they knew about this. So
Wow.
I thought that was pretty cool. Because we purposely did that, a Saturday workshop, because then if you're somewhere like Europe, you can come in. It's 3:00 in the afternoon for them, but it's 9:00 in the morning for us. And then like if you're in Indonesia, you're 12 hours different. So it's just tomorrow night and they can come on too. So we purposely did these 2 sessions. And by the way, while you're all coming on, I wanted to introduce Rosanna. Rosanna is, I don't know, yeah, just wave your hand, Ro.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, sorry, I'm trying to admit people while I'm talking. Rosanna is one of our speakers. She is in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from Saturday and 2 weeks from tonight also. She's teaching on recruiting workers and developing them, like recruiting them and keeping them. You want to say anything about your workshop while you're here, Ro?
Well, yeah, I'm excited about it. I have a little bit of experience of that in my church because I was the Sunday school director there for 20 years. And so I'm really passionate about getting volunteers to find their place where they belong in their body, particularly those who work with children, because I believe that that's the most important ministry of the church. Right, Pastor Judy, right? So I'm very excited about it. And I love training. I'm actually a public school teacher now for the last 15 years. So I'm also an educator. So I love to train and develop teachers. So.
And if you're not signed up for Rosanna's workshop, you can do that, well, anytime, but you can do it tonight, after we're finished, and that would be great. So what I wanted to do is I opened it up 10 minutes early so that you could come and say hello and we could be together for a little while. But I do want to start at 8:00, which is just about now, because we only have 50 minutes. And I say we only have 50 minutes because I usually do this piece in about an hour and a half, but I won't. I promise you. And then afterwards, at 10 minutes to 9, we'll close the session, but I will stay on if anybody wants to ask questions, if you want to discuss anything or anything like that. I'll be the last one off. So you can stay as long as you want if you have any thoughts or questions. Does that sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to have you all unmuted, if you don't mind, not to mute yourselves, unless you have background noises that you want to get rid of, and we'll be able to hear them, and maybe I can mute you myself, because I muted everybody on Saturday, and I missed the back and forth a
Mm.
little bit. So I would like to have that. Let's see how it works tonight. We'll see how it works. I see Vicky is on, but I don't have a picture for you, Vicky. So, okay, Suzanne, what are you saying? Oh, you don't have it's not your video, is it? It's just a picture.
It is.
Is your camera not working up?
Well, I'm like in the middle of something else as well. So I was just thought this would be the best way to join in.
Did you now? I'll be doing something else too while I'm teaching you. Okay.
I'm sorry.
No,
It's complicated.
It's all right. It's good. It's all good. So, yeah. Anyway, I see. Vicky just sent me a message. Sent a message to all of us too. She's coming on. Hopefully, she'll come on soon. It's hard for me because I have to like do everything and admit people, and so we'll work it as best we can. I'd like to start with. I'd like to open up in prayer, if you don't mind, and then give you the big picture of what's going to happen tonight. Okay, let's pray. Father, thank you so much for my friends here. Some I know, some I don't know, but I ask that tonight would be a special night, that they would learn something new about children that would just tug at their heart, and they would know that they are called to this ministry, that they are precious in your sight for working with children. So Father, I ask your blessing and your anointing on our session this evening. Help us to learn something new that will be useful for our ministry with children.
Yes.
In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen. Judy,
Yes.
I will put mine in mute for a little. My husband is dealing with DirecTV, trying to fix the TV. So he's talking next to me here.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
But you can.
But I will be in and out.
Yes. Okay. All right. That's good.
Yeah,
Thank
he's really loud. That's why.
Yeah, okay. And I'm gonna just make sure there's nobody in the room. Nope, nobody's in the admitting room. Okay, so let me give you the big picture before I share my screen with you with some PowerPoint information. Okay, tonight's lesson is on how children learn. So now just listen to me for a moment. If you know how children learn, like if there are 4 basic ways that children learn, and then 4 modalities, we're going to learn modalities too. Like the way they learn is where they live, the modality is how they get there. Okay. So, like, we're going to talk about imaginative learners who might be visual. The visual is the modality, the imaginative is the learning style. Now, if you know that about children, the children that are in your group or the children that are in your church, then you know you have to teach differently to all the children. Get it? This is the big picture. If you know that everybody learns differently, then you have to teach differently. So I have something I call the 5-minute rule. I change everything every 5 minutes. They're up, they're down, they're talking, they're not talking, they're working in groups, they're playing a game, and then they're listening to a little story. So everything changes 5 minutes, because my goal is the maximum amount of children will leave with the maximum amount of information. Right? Doesn't that make sense? The maximum amount of children will leave with the maximum amount of information. So we're going to go through the details of learning styles, learning modalities, and then I'm just going to show you a screen with some teaching techniques like puppets and stories and games and things like that, and show you how you can just pick and choose what's going to work so that all your kids will learn everything that you're teaching. Come on, is that great or what?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's good. And hello, Beth. It's nice to have you here, honey. And I'd like you to unmute yourself, unless you have noise in the background. I prefer the people would unmute themselves unless you're running a dishwasher or your husband's screaming at you or something like that, or your wife, you know, whatever. So anyway, now I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to talk about 4 different styles of learning. Just give me a sec to get it up. And yeah, now I have to move something down to the bottom of my screen. Yeah, you know, it just, yeah, okay. Okay, and then I'm going to do a little slideshow for you from the beginning. Good. There are 4 basic styles of learning, and you have this on the paper that I sent you too. So you can take notes if you'd like. The first is the imaginative learner, and there are questions that typify the imaginative learner. We're going to learn a bunch of characteristics of the imaginative learner, but the question that typifies him or her is, why do I need to know this? This is the kind of a learner that, like when you had to take calculus in school, you thought to yourself, when am I ever going to use this again? Why do I need this? This is a typical question that the imaginative learner has. The analytic learner is, what do I need to know? Just give me the facts. I don't want more. I want as little as possible, and I only want the facts. What do I need to know? That's the question that typifies him or her. The common sense learner says, how does this work? They're the kid that like takes the toaster apart to see how it toasts bread and then puts it back together, okay? The dynamic learner, the question that typifies him is, what can this become? He's the one that takes the toaster apart and adds an engine to it. And, you know, tries to see what it will actually become. So those are the basic 4. We're going to start with the imaginative learner and look at some of the characteristics. I'm going to go faster, probably faster than you can write, but please remember that I'm going to send you all the notes right after the workshop is over. Imaginative learners are feeling people. They're more emotional than the other types of learners. They like to get involved with others. And by the way, you're going to hear me say they like to get involved with others for 3 out of the 4 learning styles. There's just one that does not like to get involved with others. And we'll talk about that when we come to it. They are curious, imaginative learners. They are questioning. And if you have children and the children that say, why is it, why mom, why is it that way? Why did he do that? Why? These are usually imaginative children. They're curious and they're questioning. They learn by listening and sharing ideas. This is very important to know because sometimes we quiet kids, but they're actually learning because they're talking. And we say, stop talking. But they're talking to their neighbor about what the puppet just said, and it has to do with your lesson. But we say, shh, quiet, quiet, sit there. And they're actually learning by sharing ideas, not just listening, but sharing ideas. They see the big picture and not the details. They're not detail people. These are the friends you want to have that will help you look at things objectively. You know, you're having a problem at work. You want to ask your friend who can look at things from afar, like from different angles, because they see the big picture. And okay, we go next to analytic learners. Analytic learners are the scariest one for me because I'm not an analytic learner, but you'll see what I mean as we go through this. They learn by watching and listening. Notice they're the ones, they're not doing, they're not sharing. They don't learn by sharing. They learn by watching and listening. And the teacher is the primary information giver with an analytic learner. They are often considered to be the best learners, but that's not necessarily true. It's just that's how they learn. You know, they learn by sitting and listening, and that's their learning style. And we say they're the good kids.
Right.
or were they're the good learners, but it's not that way. I will tell you about two boys that I had and um, at the church in Mystic. I hate to use an actual church, but it was that church. And so, yeah, Suzanne, I'm sorry, but it's going to be that way because we had an analytic learner and a dynamic learner in the same group. I've always worked with like 5 to 12-year-olds, the big group, and I shoot for the middle and I make sure I get the top and the bottom. So I've worked with a lot of children and wide age ranges. So analytic learners are often considered the best learners. And most teachers have traditionally taught this way because we lecture, we put it in a way that's logical, and we expect the children to sit like little soldiers. Actually, that's probably how it used to be. Well, when we were in school, when I was in school a lot further back than most of you are, but even so, in school, what were we taught? Sit there, sit and listen. They are strategic planners. They aim for perfection, which is a nice way of saying they're perfectionists. They want all the data before any decisions are made. Just give me all the information. They are uncomfortable with any other forms of teaching other than information given. So I had a kid, Christopher, who was an analytic learner. And every time I would want to play a game or do an activity, he would either get a headache, a stomach
Yeah.
ache, or he would leave the room, like sneak out of the room. Okay. So I had to figure out a way to have him learn because I had another boy who was a dynamic learner and also tactile kinesthetic, which meant he needed movement in order to learn. I had them both in the same group. And of course, Christopher was thought of as the good kid, and the other boy was thought of as the bad kid. I'd go downstairs to Sunday school, and this other kid would be sitting out in the hall. And I'd say, honey, why are you sitting here? And he'd say, teacher gave me a timeout, because they just didn't know what to do with him.
Mhm.
But he was really a dynamic learner. And then they just want the facts, and they are exact and accurate in their thinking. That's why these kids scare me the most, because I am not an analytic learner. And so I know that I have to reach them. I want to play games. I want you in skits. I want to, that's how I like to teach, and analytic learners can't. I want to just give you a little side note here, because I don't know if I'll really get to it later. But there is no law that says every child has to participate in everything. There's no law that says that. Now, if they're not participating because they're just being, they're just being disrespectful, that's different. That's a discipline problem, and we're not talking about that. But if they're an analytic learner and they don't want to play the game, wouldn't it be nice if they didn't have to? They'd want to come back. At your church, Rosanna, at the Greenwich Church, I learned some very valuable lessons because we had a bunch of analytic learners, and we had all the kids together. I would do children's church, and we would play games, and we had these big boys, we had these little girls, and the little girls were so afraid to play the games. And so I used to have one of the workers sit in a little circle on the side in the big room that we were in and talk to the girls while the boys played the game. What's wrong with that? They were still learning, and they didn't feel threatened by these big boys that were playing. So there is no law that says everybody has to participate in everything. There's ways to get around that so that your kids feel comfortable and would love to come back, not hate to come back, because you're going to make them play a game if they don't want to. Okay, we're going to go to common sense learners. Remember the question is, how does this work? That typified him. They like to play with ideas and see if they are rational or workable. So that's common sense. These are the people that you want for your plumber or for your mechanic, your car mechanic. You want them to be common sense learner, be able to see, yeah, this fits with this, and it works. They want to test their theories in the real world, so to speak. They love to get the job done. In other words, they start projects and they finish projects because they like to see something done and say, it's finished. I did that. They like to analyze problems, solve, or fix them. So they'll look at it and they'll say, yeah, I think if I moved this piece over here, if I did this, that's how they think. They are practical. They learn best when learning is combined with doing. Okay? Remember I said only the analytic learners are not doers and not talkers, and they just don't want to. They're not that way. And now we're going to go to the last one, and then I want to give you a big picture moment too. The dynamic learners. The dynamic learners also enjoy the action part of the learning process, like the common sense learners. But they're a little different. They're not always rational. They're like, ooh, what would happen if I stuck this here? And it could be really dangerous. So they're not always rational. They follow their hunches, sensing new directions and possibilities. So they're sometimes a little crazy, They're risk takers. They like flexibility. They like change. They find joy in starting something new, but they don't what?
Finish things.
That's right. That's the big difference between them and the common sense learners. You'll see unfinished projects. And maybe some of you are that way, or your spouse is that way. Unfinished projects. They'll start them and gung ho, but that's it. And they enjoy originality. If I gave a test to some of you, and let's say you're a musician or an artist, you'd probably score high in the dynamic learner because originality is part of their DNA. So now I have these two boys. I have Christopher and I have the other boy as the dynamic learner. But he is also tactile kinesthetic, which means he needs movement in order to learn. He's the bad boy and Christopher is the good boy. No, that's not how it works. It's how they learn. Because once I started realizing that my 5-minute rule was the way to go and keep changing it. And I would ask the second boy to pass out the papers or to hand out whatever so that he would get movement. And I would never ask, if we played a game, I would ask Christopher to keep score or make sure their toes didn't go over the line. Like I wouldn't ask him to participate in the game. And it wasn't just Christopher, but basically the analytic learners. So you have to realize that you have this line. On one line, you have the analytic learners. On the other end of the line are dynamic. The others are all in between. And you have to figure out how everyone can learn. And that's why you are precious in the sight of our Lord Jesus. And I'm not kidding. You are up there. Jesus is doing this in heaven for you because you know that you want every kid under your care to know that God loves him or her. And that is a very special place that you have in the kingdom. And people will not applaud you. They won't. Nope. They won't applaud you, and you might not get a trophy, or people won't even lift their hands and praise God while you're teaching children. They won't, So you just have to understand that God is thanking you, and God is clapping his hands, and God is so grateful that you're doing this. Now listen, all right, you'll learn other things as you go along in life. Like there are 8 styles of learning, or 8 and 7 intelligences, or 9. I just want you to remember that I'm right. Okay? That there are basically 4. And of course, this is from Bernice McCarthy. This is her way of teaching teachers. So if you ever want to look stuff up, it's Bernice McCarthy. But and I've learned over the years that this makes the most sense, because yes, children learn by music, but that's not a style of learning. That's it's totally different. And so when you're a child, okay, no, let me start with an adult. If I ask you which out of the 4 you are, actually, I'm going to unshare my screen if I can figure out how. All right, let's figure out how. Nope, I didn't want to do that because I got rid of my, all right, let's see. I don't know how to unshare my screen. Does anybody know how to unshare the screen?
Can't,
I don't have a panel.
If you go up around the top,
bottom.
it
I
should
don't
pop
know.
up.
I don't have the bottom panel because I took it away because it was blocking my words.
Can you press
If you-
escape?
Yeah. What am I supposed to do?
The escape.
Yeah, escape a large screen. That's a good idea.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Push
Good.
escape.
Good. Now I'm stopping share. Good. Thank you. So, yes, escape. That's always a good button to have. I wish I had one in life. Escape. I can push the escape button. But anyway, so if I ask you which one of those 4 are you the strongest in, and it might be 2, it might be 3. I'll ask, all right, how many of you, by raising your hand, by you're raising your real hand, how many of you are imaginative learners? Raise your hand. Okay. I see 2 hands here, 3. All right, how many of you are analytic learners? Raise your hand. You're the scary people. I see a bunch of those. How many of you common sense learners? Really? Wow. Oh, okay. How about dynamic learners? Anybody a dynamic learner? Yeah, that's a little scary too, the dynamic learners, but it's good. Now, how many of you were more than one? You were strong in more than one?
Mm.
Almost all of you. You know why? Because the lines blur as you get older. You grow up, you have to give a presentation in college. You have to do something that you might have been afraid of when you were a kid. And so the lines blur, which is not a bad thing because we get to do more and we get to learn a little differently, and we get to teach differently too as we teach. If I gave a test to the children, they would score very high in 1, pretty much in 1. But with adults, they score high in more than 1. All right, we're going to go on to modalities now. So let me go back to sharing my screen. And modalities, there are 3 modalities: visual, auditory, and tactile kinesthetic. And I've said it like 3 times already. Tactile kinesthetic means they need movement in order to learn. Visual and auditory, I'll give you some specifics, but basically, you know what those are. And then I just wanted to show you this. This is my little way of saying that any of the modalities could be in any of the 4 styles. So you could be a visual learner and be imaginative. You could be an auditory learner and be imaginative. Tactile kinesthetic and be imaginative. Usually the tactile kinesthetic leans a little bit more toward the common sense, the dynamic, and imaginative. You don't have too many analytic tactile kinesthetic kids. That probably makes sense to you, right? Yeah, okay. So let's talk about the visual kids. Kids who, they need words or pictures in order to learn. They need words and pictures in order to learn. Pictures are very important. And they may stop and stare into space while you're telling a story, if it's only a verbal story. Why do you think they're staring into space? I can only see four pictures right now because of the screen. So somebody will just have to call out. But why do you think they stop and stare into space?
Because they're visualizing what is happening.
That's
I
exactly
think
right.
they're trying to imagine what we are talking and
Right.
try to make sense of it.
You're not giving them pictures, so they're making their own
Yeah.
in their heads. So sometimes we do this. Hey, stop staring into space. Come back to me. And you know, all they're doing is
Trying to-
putting pictures to your story. And so if we know that, we won't do that. So don't do it. Okay. All right. Many of today's visual learners need more than just words. They need pictures. Words do help, but pictures really help. Let me tell you, when I was, I've been in children's ministry for about 150 years. Okay, maybe not 150, but a long time. I mean it. I started in children's ministries in like 1977 or 76, something like that. And I used to keep a picture file. I was a children's pastor at a church in Queens, New York, and I kept a picture file. And I would ask everybody in the church to take their magazines, cut out pictures, bring them to church for me. I would go weeks on a campaign with this, weeks and weeks. And then I would glue them onto cardstock or construction paper. And then I would have a file cabinet full of pictures. So if you were telling a story about a boy walking his dog in the rain, I would have a picture of a boy, a dog, an umbrella, rain, whatever you wanted. You could look in my picture file and get it. Now, oh my gosh, we have computers. I mean, we can get pictures anywhere. So and we don't even have to have them on little papers like that. We can have them on big screens if you have video projection and you use PowerPoint. So we just have it really good. We do, as opposed to how I had it 150 years ago when the overhead projector was high technology. We need to find ways to combine words with pictures. And poor readers especially benefit from pictures.
Yes.
And there was a test done for 5th grade students who were reading 2 grade levels below. And half the group was given pictures and the words they had to read, and half the group, there were no pictures. The group that was given the pictures did 144% better than the one that did not have pictures.
Sure.
So pictures really help poor readers, okay? And pictures are so easy to find for stories now. And you could even, I used to have somebody, I lived in the Netherlands for almost 15 years, and I did children's programs there. And I had a woman who was very creative, very quiet. And I gave her a character. We called her Oma Bessie. Oma is grandmother in Dutch. She was Oma Bessie. She was so creative. She would write her own stories. And I thought the kids would eat her alive because she was so meek. And she would just talk like this, and she'd sit on the rocking chair, rock back and forth and tell her story. But those kids, I would say, it's time for Oma Bessie. They would scream and yell. They loved it. They loved her. Well, first of all, because she found her own pictures for her stories and put them on the video projector, and so that was great. And plus, it was like Mr. Rogers. You know how kids loved him? He was so meek. Well, kids loved Oma Bessie the same way. They'd be like, "Oh, Ma Bessie," and like bring her up. "Oh, Ma Bessie." It was very funny. So she was great, and she had the greatest pictures. Okay. Now, visual learners. Auditory learners. Now, I meant to look it up today because I never really know the statistics, But there's this myth about like children will remember 10% of what they hear, 40% of what they hear and see, 65% of what they see, hear, and do, something like that. I don't really have the right numbers. As I said, I meant to look it up today and I forgot. But kids who are auditory learners remember much more than 10% of what they hear. They can remember 90% of what they hear. I'm an auditory learner. I learn much better with my ears than I do with my eyes. However, I will say, because of the world we live in today, even if you're not born a visual learner, you lean more towards visual learning because the world is so visual now. I sometimes look at commercials on television and they're animated, but I think they're real. You know, it takes me a minute to realize that these are animations because they look so real. So if you're an auditory learner, you can remember much more than 10%. Some can't even take notes because it distracts. I taught at a Bible college at Zion Bible College and Zion at North Point College, it's called now. And I would watch this, all I would have to do, because I would give notes, I would give them like outlines and they would have to fill it in. And those kids, I could tell who were the auditory learners. They weren't taking notes. They would just like be like this. And it wasn't because they had a crush on me or anything. They were listening to me. They had to listen to me. So, yeah.
I don't know, Judy, I might have.
Yeah, exactly.
They have to pay total attention to what the teacher is saying, okay? And often they move their lips when they read silently. Why do you think that is? They move their lips. So they're reading to themselves, but they look like this.
Yeah.
Often considered best learners.
They-
Why? Why do you think
Because they're speaking to themselves.
They want to hear
exactly. They're making the sound of what they're reading.
Mhm.
So, like, I am the slowest reader I know. I'm a voracious reader. I read all the time. I always have a book. I'm always reading. But I can't join a book club because I can't keep up. I have to read. I mean it. I have to read at my own pace. I'm a very slow reader. So if you are a slow reader and you always thought that maybe you were a little stupid, let me tell you, you're not. You're just an auditory learner. So let me set you free from that today. If you thought you read slowly and you really don't have the goods up here. No, it's not that way at all. And they often learn well in groups, like cooperative learning, like when college students have study groups, those are usually the auditory learners. And they can usually only handle one stream of sound at a time. Now, this is more prominent when they're younger, when they're children. As we get older, okay, so you have toddlers running around the house, the phone is ringing, the television is on, you're cooking a meal, you know, you have to deal with more than one stream of sounds. But really, auditory learners have a hard time. I can't even have the radio on in the car while I'm talking to somebody. Like, I can't. I just can't have those two things. Or if I'm looking for a street, I have to turn the radio off.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't even know what that is. That's like not being able to hear wearing a mask, you know, with a face mask. I don't know why, but it's true. Okay. Now, tactile kinesthetic learners, they need movement in order to learn. I've probably said that 20 times already today. They usually cannot sit still. They need to touch, feel, and manipulate. And writing does not constitute doing. You know how we have those sheets for kids, like Sunday school sheets and things they can fill out? Using a pencil and paper is not really manipulating or doing something. And this also, oh yeah, okay. If teachers are teaching TK kids with audio and visual methods, the children may become tense or physically ill. Remember I told you Christopher would get a stomach ache or a headache or sneak out of the room? Well, the other kid, the dynamic learner, he would also get a stomach ache or a headache or sneak out of the room if he had to sit too long and I was lecturing. Now, whether it was psychosomatic or not, I gave him that headache because I was not varying my methods. This is the whole reason for this workshop. Vary your methods so the maximum number of children leave with a maximum amount of information. This also may lead to
That's so good.
unacceptable behavior, right? That's why we think of them as the bad kids, but they're not. And I got to tell you this, and I'm not telling you to take your children off of medication, but I think medication is just given out a little bit too easily. And I think that if these kids were taught to their learning styles,
Right.
they would not need medication. I'm not saying all of them. I know that there are good things out there, but I mean, we had a kid, Rosanna. Do you remember Miss Ann? She was a Daisy teacher. Okay, she had the 4 and 5 year olds, 4 and 5 year old boys and girls, and we were in an old building at the time. They're in a new, beautiful building now. We were in an old building that had windowsills that were really big. You know, those old, like old school buildings with big windowsills. And she would have maybe 15 or 18 kids, daisies, in her class. And she had this one little girl, I think her name was Nicole. And she was a wild child. I would come in the room and Nicole would be underneath the table with her hands and feet pushing the table up. She'd be up the windowsill jumping down. And Miss Ann, she was from the South. She was this Southern genteel woman. And she would be teaching her lesson and she would be letting Nicole do what she was doing. I mean, unless she was being disruptive. That, like I said, that's a discipline problem. But Nicole loved Miss Ann so much, and she could recite everything that she learned in Daisies when she went home. They couldn't even believe that a teacher could do that because she was teaching to her learning style. Ann was. Okay, so just because they need movement, it doesn't mean they're bad. They learn differently. And I want to right now apologize to everybody in this workshop. They had teachers that made you sit like little soldiers, and they did not know that you were a different kind of a learner. And it was like you were tied to the chair and you were stiff, and learning wasn't fun. I want to apologize for all those teachers that just didn't know all the stuff that I'm teaching you tonight that you can now use with your children and have them grow to be. I mean, if you were planted as a daisy, you're not going to grow up to be a gardenia. You know, it just doesn't happen. And so we need to, just like with plants, we need to water some a lot. We need to water some a little, put some in the sun, in the shade. It's the same with kids. We have to teach to their styles so that they will learn. Okay. And in order to know if they're you really kind of know if they're tactile kinesthetic, but look at the body language. Look at the whole body of the child, not just their facial expressions, and you'll know if they're tactile kinesthetic. Okay, now you have a paper that I sent to you with methods, right? Methods of learning. And if you don't have it, you can look at this triangle and I'll tell you what the top one is: visual. The second one is, I'm sorry, the top one is verbal. The second one is visual. The third one is simulated. Simulated techniques are anything that the children are involved in. Like when you sing with children, that's called a simulated technique. And then direct is the last one, the bottom. A direct learning experience is when you teach the kids, when you do with the kids what you're teaching them. Like if you're teaching them to be kind to the homeless and you collect coats and scarves and hats and then take the kids and give them to homeless shelters. That's a direct learning experience. You're actually directly doing what you're teaching them. And the reason I have it in a triangle, it's not because they're more effective or less effective. The reason it's in a triangle and direct is at the bottom and verbal is at the top is because it takes you, the teacher, less time to do the top than it does the bottom. The direct learning experiences when you take your kids out somewhere, when you actually do things with them, that takes you time. If you can do one a year, maybe two a year, that's a lot. But verbal, that's easy. You don't even need pictures. Visual, of course, includes verbal, and then simulated on the paper I gave you. And I'm sending it to you again after the workshop is over. There are lists of verbal, visual, and simulated techniques. Now you could look them up online. You can get books. I don't have to go over them with you. But what I want to show you is pick 6 from each group and just keep rotating them. You know what I mean? Like go from storytelling without pictures to using maps to using discussion questions, and then go back to it. That's what I mean about the 5-minute rule. Change everything every 5 minutes, because that way you will reach the maximum number of children with the maximum amount of information. You notice I have a repetitious style. I do repeat myself. Now, I'm coming back to you. I want to see all of your faces. And I want to know if you have any questions, thoughts, concerns about anything that we've said, or you'd like to share something yourself, maybe an experience. No?
I have
Judy,
a,
oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Claudia.
yeah, hi. I have a question. So I'm in a small church. I only have two, right now we just reopened and we have a couple of kids. But the people who are helping out to teach are over 70 years old. Too
Over
late.
70?
70, yeah. I'm in the youth group, all right? We are
I'm close, so
So I really struggle because my background in education is in early childhood education. I got my master in special ed. That's what I do in my job. I work with an interest. So all my background is in education, and so this is really reinforcing what I already know, kind of.
Okay.
But I struggle with when they say, "Oh, I sent the kid upstairs because he wasn't listening." And it because the kid need to be just changing the position in the seat. When I'm teaching, that doesn't bother me. I just like he's not bothering anybody else. He's just paying attention, just listening, but not like looking at me. And they have that mindset like it was in the past. Like you have to sit down, you listen at the teacher, you look at them. So my question is like maybe you have experience how you can break that, because I say like everybody learn in different way. We have to vary this, do different things, but that's why they have been used for years. So to change that mindset, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to approach it.
Mindset. Well, you can always give them this video. I don't know what what platform I'm going to use.
Yeah.
I think I might use YouTube, but you can always or talk to them. I mean, if there's only 2 kids, you're starting kind of in a good place. You're starting at the bottom. You can only get bigger and better. So talk to them personally, and just say, you were at a workshop the other day, and this is what the lady was saying, that this and that. I mean, I'm almost 70 years old myself, but you have to change with the
Yeah.
times. So yes, that's what I would do. I would talk to them personally, or if you have any written material
Yeah.
that's easy for them to.
Yeah, I was thinking to take some of your notes and just kind of accommodate for them and do it with
Yes.
them.
Yes.
Yeah, but I was
Absolutely.
wondering if somebody else had the same issue that, like, or the lady had the same approach with the kids. Because I get it, like we are changing, it's a different generation.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Mhm.
I don't know why that is and why that happens. Does anybody else, can anybody else address Claudia with that?
Well, education has changed so much, and to be able to convey that. The other thing I would say to you, because I had this situation with, I ran our department, our Sunday school department for many years, and I had old school teachers there. And I'm happy to say that with consistent training and modeling, see, when I did a staff meeting, I would model strategies during our staff meeting.
Yeah.
And so it took time, but if they love working with kids, then they'll be teachable, and if you're able to model, you're able to share Judy's understanding of these teaching modalities that she shared tonight, and if you're able to, you know it's I use the word time. I have to say, Judy, our mutual friend Jonathan, who taught Sunday school when he was a lecturer, and he just stood up behind a podium and taught these fourth and fifth graders. And it took me, and now he is dynamic, but it took time, it took training, it took him being open-minded to do that. So, just go for it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, that is good. And if you can do
You know?
regular trainings, what'll happen,
Mhm.
more people will volunteer because they'll see like
Yes.
maybe you do 4 a year or even 3 a
Mhm.
year,
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would come to your church to do training if you want.
That's not a best where I'm located.
Oh, yeah, well, we know there's signs for moose where Claudia lives. Ask me how I know.
Oh, that's great.
Moose and Canada.
That's great.
I have a
I know.
question.
Yes. Yeah, that's
So, we talked about how we relocated. So prior to where we are now, we were in a public school building. We were renting a public school. And even though the space wasn't my own, it was a great space for the kids. I had a big chalkboard and we were in a preschool class. So we had tons of space to run around and learn and do different activities. And I agree that just moving really quickly and doing the 5-minute rule, that was definitely my thing. But now the building that we're in, that we borrow a couple times a month, there's really no space for kids ministry. So we are like either in the back of the sanctuary during the service where I'm spending the whole time telling the kids that they need to be quiet because the pastor is preaching, and I feel awful about it. Or if the heat is on, we have this little back room that we can use, but there's no space to run around or play games or jump up and down or yell. And I gotta tell you, I'm really struggling, and I could really use some creative ideas on I want these kids to have fun and learn and not just be shoved into the back room, I guess.
Yeah. First of all, shame on your pastor for choosing that
Yeah.
space.
Yep.
I mean, people don't realize that
Yep.
children are so important.
Yeah.
Right.
So that makes me mad already. But
I'm on the board, and I have to tell you that we don't have a lot of choices. Like our financial situation, we're not going to be renting a building anytime soon. So the fact that another church is allowing us to borrow their building is,
so that's what you're doing. Okay. I was going to tell you, we had a very small church in Holland, and we didn't have place for kids. And so we rented a trailer, like a container, and we used that, but we put it on the land. And that's what we did. We used it for the kids. And it was great. And we can make as much noise as we wanted. So I don't know if that's something that would be in your budget, or I'd be happy to help raise money for you to get something like that. But that's a thought. And of course, when the nice weather comes, which it feels like it's never going to come, but when, you know, that you could use outside, you could go outside.
Yeah, outside isn't an option either. We're not in an area that I would feel comfortable taking the kids
Okay.
outside. A trailer though, is that something that you could move, or is it something that had to permanently stay there?
No, it didn't. No. Oh, you mean, well, it would have to stay there while you're there. So you'd have to get permission from the church
Okay.
to do that, because you don't want to move it back and forth. It's, you know, you need like a 18-wheeler to get it
Yep.
there. It's like what we call the container. When we ship stuff across the sea, we use a container, and it's really the back of a truck. You know, it's
Yeah.
20-foot container, or it could be bigger than that. So that, but that's what we use. But we put it right in our, we owned the church. And so we put it right on our land. It was ugly, but it showed that we needed a growth, you know, that we were growing. But that is something to consider.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
Hey, I want to technically end the meeting because it is 10 minutes of, but I told you I will stay on. I'll talk with you as long as you want. But I do want to say thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us. I'll figure out if I actually recorded this or not tonight. I hit the record button, but you know.
It says it's recording.
It says recording.
Oh,
It does say it's recording.
Yes, you're right. I see that. It says recording. And I will let you know. And as soon as I close this out, I'll send you the notes because I have all your email addresses. Okay. All right. Anybody else want to say anything? I mean, or if you have to go, go.
All
If
right.
not,
I
stay
gotta go.
and hang
Mwah.
out. We'll
I
talk.
gotta go. Love you. Good to
Okay.
see you
Thank
all.
you. It was awesome.
Bye.
Bye.
So much.
Thanks for coming.
I have to
Thanks,
call.
Judy. The 5-minute rule was really a good reminder.
Yeah, it is. It's just a good thing to do. Good. I'm glad it was a good reminder. All right. Excellent.
Thanks. Good to see you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, good to see you too, sort of. Your picture anyway.
Bye-bye.
It's lovely. Can that picture wave goodbye? No, it's gone already. That picture.
You're so funny.
Well, that's why I like to unmute you.
Yeah, we can hear our reactions.
Yeah. So,
Judy, it's Anne. I just want to say thank you.
oh,
Sorry I
Ann,
was late
how
getting
nice
on.
to see you. I'm sorry. I didn't even recognize you. Your hair's so short.
Yeah, and it's very gray.
Well, yeah, mine's getting there too. So,
But I had a problem getting on today. For some reason, the link that you sent in the email just would bring me to the Eventbrite. And when I would click on the Eventbrite ticket, it would just bring me back to another Eventbrite page. I don't know what that was about, but
okay, I don't know. But I thought I sent the link, the Zoom link. The Eventbrite one brings you to all the other. Hey, Ryan. How are you? Hey, I just want to tell everybody, I know Ann and Ryan actually from Rhode Island, when
Yeah.
Zion was in Barrington. And Ryan was one of my students and was working with Royal Rangers, and he took one of my classes.
yeah, it's
And-
all your fault, Judy.
I know it is. I know. But now they're down in Virginia, and he pastors down in Virginia. I was there once. I'd like to get there again.
And then Ryan's associate pastor, Abby, is on with us tonight too.
Oh, Abby. Okay.
Yeah, she's our associate at
I didn't
MCF.
realize that. Very
Yeah.
nice to meet you, Abby. Okay.
Very
Yeah.
nice to meet you too.
The Virginia people.
Yeah, Virginia people.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna run, Judy, but this was excellent. Thank you so much. I love the 5-minute thing. I think that's gonna be really good for our kids ministry right now.
Yeah.
So
It'll
I
help
think that-
everybody. It'll keep the kids active. It'll keep them. It'll help you too.
oh yeah,
Mhm.
it'll help us a lot. So we love you. Thank
Yeah,
you
love
so
you
much.
too.
So good to
Nice
see
to
your
see you.
beautiful face. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Abby.
Okay.
Bye too. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Nice
Thank
to see
you.
all. Yeah. Hey, you stayed on the whole time. That's good.
Yes.
All right.
All
So
right.
enjoy the sun and while we have to dig out of snow here.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. It's kind of fun when it gets down to you, like, all right, who's going to be next? Who's dropping out now? Now, any questions, thoughts, concerns? No? Okay. I will send you those notes. And if you haven't signed up for Rosanna's workshop yet, I think the Monday night is more full than the Saturday, but you can look. Does it show? I have never bought a ticket. So what is it? Does it show you how many are left when you go buy a ticket, or you don't know? They do? Yeah, it shows you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Judy, I was so excited to take your class because I remember you coming to my church when I was a kid and teaching us the banana song.
Everybody remembers I like bananas.
I love that song.
Yep.
Everybody.
That's great.
And what church is it?
Norwich Assembly of God in Norwich, Connecticut.
Oh, yeah. I
Yep.
remember that church well.
Yeah, I'm actually the children's pastor there now. So.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
Good for
I
you.
live in Rhode Island, but I go there on the weekends.
Okay. Holly was the
Yeah,
children.
Pastor Holly. Yep.
Yes. Holly and Bryant. I'm still in touch with them. I mean, through the magic.
Oh,
of
I am
Facebook.
too.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I talk to them, and we're whited Bible camp people too.
Yes.
So if you're familiar with that.
Yep. And I actually, Pastor Holly was the one that got me. I'm actually a graduate of Zion Bible College too. So.
Okay, good. What year, hon?
2010.
Oh, okay. Not too long ago. Yeah, I left for Holland in 2006 and and came back like 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago.
Okay.
So yeah, we missed each other there.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
All right.
today
Well,
with this training tonight was really, really good because my children's church, the main kids that we have right now is my 3 kids, and my oldest son has severe ADHD. So this is a refresher to help work with him and stuff.
Good. Good.
And everything.
I hope you will. Good. Well, nice to meet you, or see you again when you're not a kid.
Yes. Thank you so much, Judy. This was wonderful.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure, really.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay. All right. What do you want to do? Have a little coffee? Talk a little? No? Okay, there they go. And Vicky's sticking around a little bit. Where's Vicky saying goodbye? Vicky's muted, so we can't tell what she's saying.
I know.
We'll unmute you. I think I can unmute you.
Oh, her mic is broken, she said.
The mic is broken?
Oh,
Yeah.
bummer. Can you unmute her?
I just did, but it's not.
Oh, it
still not
doesn't work.
working. Oh, so you know what? Next, like tomorrow or whenever, you just go into your settings. Go into your. No, you can't go into your settings. I don't know why, and I don't know sign language. Sorry, but you can hear me apparently. Okay, because that would have been a real bummer
I know.
if the whole thing was like this. Okay.
Oh.
All right. Oh, okay. Oh, he's IT and you can't even. Oh, well, shame on him.